Hey, thanks for checking out my video. I'm Olivia, and today I'm going to be talking about all the palettes I used in May. Before we get into it, I'm wearing my blazer and my makeup is patchy and half worn off, so you might have been able to guess that I'm filming after work. I'm going to be honest, I'm very tired. I was too lazy to change outfits, but I wanted to get this video filmed, so we're just going to go with it. I figured since I'm already in the work attire, let's just go full send. We're going to go with the glasses today. So you're getting professional Olivia today. Also, before we get into all the palettes I used in May, I did forget to mention this in my last episode from the series, but I got this video idea from Kay at Makeup Lens. I'm going to link her channel down below, and I encourage you to check her out if you're into these types of videos. Again, I got this video idea from her, and she usually does these videos on a monthly basis as well. The ring light might be an issue with the glasses. Hopefully it's not too distracting. I might have to take them off. I don't want to have to look at you like this the whole video. It's a bit awkward. So you know what, maybe we'll avoid the ring light. We are not as professional as I was planning today. But anyway, let's just jump into the video. For the month of May, I ended up using 22 different palettes. 13 of those palettes I used just once throughout the month. There were 7 that I used twice, and then 2 that I used 3 times. I tend to wear makeup, I would say 5 to 6 days a week, but since we're getting into the summer, we're getting into cottage season, I do feel like that number might reduce a little bit over the summer, but we'll see. But I feel like for May, there's only probably 1 or 2 weekends where I didn't really wear much makeup, and for the most part, I'm usually wearing it 5 days during the work week. So yeah, just to give you an idea, that's kind of how often I'm actually wearing makeup. So let's start with the palettes I used once throughout the month. I've been making a pretty good effort of taking pictures of my looks, so I will include those on the screen. There might be 1 or 2 instances where I just kind of forgot or didn't have time, or if I filmed a video for YouTube using a palette. I don't usually take pictures of those looks because I'd rather encourage you to check out the video if you're interested. But yeah, let's just get into it. The first palette that I used in May, and that I only used once, was the Unearthly Bunnies palette. This is a very fun palette. I find the shades to be really colorful and fun, but the undertones are still kind of unique. So I always love dipping into this one around the spring and summer season. So I obviously went pretty colorful when I used this one. I did kind of a green, yellow, orangey look. And the shimmers I used for that look were Golden Egg and Hop. And I really love both of the shimmers. I find them both to be really unique. They're dimensional, they're kind of shifty. I'm gonna try not to swatch too much in this video, but these are just so pretty, I feel like I had to swatch them. So Golden Egg is kind of like a green to a gold. I feel like it's showing up really gold on the camera. I don't know if it'll pick up the green. And then Hop is almost kind of a peachy pink shift. Very beautiful shades. I had a lot of fun creating a cute little colorful look with this palette. The quality is really beautiful and I'm excited to use it throughout the summer. The next palette that I used once in May was the Artist Couture Supreme Mauves. This is a very pretty palette. It's obviously very basic, but it still leans into the rosy mauves, which I really enjoy. The look I created with this palette was very easy to do. It was very simple, but I feel like the undertones are just very flattering. I used this one to create kind of a basic bitch look for work, and I really like how it turned out. The next palette that I used once in May is the Gimme Glow Vintage Rose. This one I actually used in conjunction with the Blend Bunny Forget Me Not, and I will talk about this later on because I used it a few times this month. From this palette, and for the look you're going to see on the screen in just a second, I think I just used some of the more basic shades to kind of ground or complete the look. I know I used the white and the black, and I think I used the pink as a transition. So from the Vintage Rose, I used this bright pink here, and I deepened it up with Velvet Petals, and I'm pretty sure I used these 2 shimmers on the lid. I remember intending to do the greens on the lower lash line to do kind of a fun spring look. Definitely forgot about the greens. It ended up being pretty much just a pinky mauve look. The look was definitely very girly, but I thought it was really cute, it was really pretty, and I liked how it turned out. The next palette that I used once in May was the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 5. I believe I used this one a couple times in April, but I wasn't quite done with it. I'll post a picture of the look I created on the screen. I actually think I took a video as well because the shades were looking all cute and shifty, so I tried to capture it in a video. Hopefully it translates well. But some of the shimmers in this palette are just very transformative. They're very shifty. For the look you're seeing on the screen, I went in with Powerful, Protected, and then I believe I used Resilient on the lower lash line. I actually also paired the Danessa Myricks palette with the Blend Bunny Forget Me Not. Obviously that one's an all shimmer palette. I usually prefer to have some mattes just to kind of set up the look. So I just grabbed for a couple neutrals and I use this palette to do it. I think for the look you're seeing, I had used these three. I used this one and I deepened it up with Unforgettable. This one was a bit more of a wintry look. It was a lot more cool toned. And I think because of that, it felt a little like incorrect to wear in May. I don't know, I feel like there was a couple looks this month that were either on like the wintry side or a bit more of the fall side. And I just wasn't in love with them. And I don't know if it's because like it didn't necessarily match with the season. Ultimately, I think the look turned out really pretty. I did really enjoy it. It just felt a little bit like it was kind of like lacking the spring energy that I was getting from some other looks. I feel like it makes so dramatic. It's just not one that I was the most excited about this month. However, one look that I was very excited about, which I feel like is also a little bit on the wintry side, but I was really feeling this look right here, and for this one, I used the Glaminatrix Sugar and Spice. For this one, I used this shade, and I believe these two shades to deepen it up, and then I used the shimmer here all over the lid. This one is such a beautiful shimmer. It's also very transformative. It gave kind of a wet look on the lids. I thought it was really beautiful. And I really like how easy it was to create something that was very impactful, but still very simple at the same time. I feel like with this palette, it's just very easy to put something together that's low effort, but high impact. And I feel like when this came out, there were some mixed reviews. Not everyone loved the color story, especially with the selection of the mattes in the middle row. I mean, at least from the reviews that I saw. But honestly, I think it's beautiful. I kind of like that the middle row is pretty basic because like I did in this look, I kind of just threw something together. It was really easy. I didn't have to put a lot of thought into it and it was really beautiful. And then of course you still have some pops on the bottom row here if you wanted to make it a little more fun. So I don't know, I feel like this was a really well done palette. I really love the look I put together and I'm excited to do some more. The next palette that I used once in May is this one from Gourmand Girls. I never know how to pronounce this word, so I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm just going to call it the ice cream palette. I actually used this one in conjunction with two other palettes, including the Forget Me Not yet again. And I also used one or two shades from the Blend Bunny Dollhouse palette. From the Dollhouse palette, I think I just used one of these shades down here to deepen it up. And then same with the Forget Me Not, I probably used the white on the inner corner and then one of these shades as a transition. The actual focal point of the look though was using the pink shades here and then the yellow from the Gourmand Girls palette. I'm not sure how this shade's going to show up on camera, but it's kind of like a pinky, yellowy, almost multi-chrome. So I paired it with Rosé, this pink matte here, and I felt like it created a really pretty effect. Yeah, I don't know if this will pick up. It's kind of like a pink to gold, but there's also kind of like a green shift in there. Very beautiful shimmer. I really like the look. I do think it went a little bit downhill when I used the yellow on the inner part of the lower lash line. I thought I was doing something fun and a little funky, but I feel like it kind of took away from the look. Especially because that shimmer is so impactful and dimensional. I really didn't need to like fuss with the look too much, but I did. Either way, I still think it turned out cute and it was a fun look. I've only used this one a couple times so far. I haven't used all the mattes, but at least the mattes that I have used don't have the most impact and payoff. They're a little bit on the softer side, which honestly isn't always a bad thing. I feel like it does make them easy to use at the same time. But I mean, as you saw, I do feel like I needed to dip into other palettes to actually give me a little bit more depth. And I feel like that might be kind of the case with this palette. These two shimmers are on the darker side, so I feel like if I want to do a look using those, I'll probably have to dip into something else. And I mean, I might be talking out of my ass a little bit because I haven't used this green yet, so maybe this does offer more depth than what I would expect. But I mean, based on my experience so far, I'd probably end up using this as more of a companion in the future as well. It's still a beautiful palette. There's a lot of nice, unique shades in here, and I had a lot of fun playing with it. The next palette that I used once in May is the Sigma Corta Rosa. This is what this palette looks like. Very pretty, kind of springy, going into summer palette. I created more of a warm, kind of corally pink look with this. I feel like it turned out really pretty. I don't have a picture of the look I did with this one because it is actually part of one of my last YouTube videos. In the video, I was doing 3 looks with 3 different Sigma palettes, and obviously this one was featured. So if you are curious and you do want to check that out, it's one of the last videos that I posted. I'm going to out myself, please don't judge me, but after a few years of owning it, the Huda Beauty New Nude is no longer my basket of shame. I finally used this one for the first time in the month of May. So this is the next palette that I'm going to talk about that I used once in May. I'll post a picture of the look I created on the screen as well. This one was a little bit more of like a rich, vibrant pink look. I really like how this one turned out. I love the little burgundy wing that I did. Overall, it was just a very pretty but still easy look to create. I will say when I created this look, I feel like it packs a lot more punch than what you would expect from a palette like this. It's definitely more of a softer pink palette when you first look at it, but clearly you can get a lot more payoff with the deeper shades here, and I really appreciated that. I feel like the look also went really well with my blazer, which was also a favorite of the month. So another palette that I used once in May is the Tartelette in Blue. This one's definitely an old throwback. She still smells wonderful though. I used this palette in my last Single Saturdays video, so I don't have a picture of that look, but I just used a few of the shades to create something obviously very basic. And I'd paired this palette with a jelly shadow from Rem Beauty. I feel like that pairing gave me a really pretty, soft, but still kind of ethereal look. I really like how that turned out, and if you're interested or curious, you could check out that video on my channel as well. The next palette that I used once in May is actually also for a YouTube video, but I also finally used the Lost in Los Angeles palette from BH. That video might actually be the one that's posted just before this one, so if you're curious, you could check it out. But that video is just using a few things from my everyday makeup drawer that were a little bit neglected, including this palette. So I don't have a picture of that look, but I went for something pretty basic but still colorful. I used more of the peachy shades in that look, and then I did a pop of the green on the lower lash line. So it was pretty quick and simple, nothing too extravagant, but I did want kind of a pop of color, so I thought I'd reach for this one. So this next batch of palettes is kind of my transition from the one use to the two. But I had reached for 6 different palettes from ColourPop for another YouTube video, doing a palette bingo. 3 of these palettes I only ended up using that one time for the video, and then I'd reached for the other 3 on another occasion in May for 2 uses. But these are the last 3 palettes that I'd used just once in May. Again, I won't have a picture up because I used them in a palette bingo video, and that will be coming on my channel soon. But in that video, I used the Lilac You A Lot palette. I'd also used the So Very Lovely from ColourPop, which is always a favorite for the springtime. And then I'd used the Gettin' Fresh palette. After that palette bingo, I was still inspired to reach back into a couple of these palettes. So I think like a day or 2 later, I'd reach back into the Sage the Day and the Sweet Talk, and I used them together in a look. The look I created, which you'll also see here, was actually inspired by that palette bingo. I had reached for this shade from the Sweet Talk palette, and I just really like the tone of that shade against some of the greens. So I wanted to use it again, and I think I also used this shade from the palette to deepen up the look that you're seeing here. I think these were the only 2 shades I used from the Sweet Talk palette in the look. And then, as I mentioned, I paired it with the Sage the Day. I had used these 2 greens here on the lid, and I believe I used this shimmer here. I thought this was a really fun look. It was kind of a unique color combination, but I feel like they complement each other well. And I really like how this one turned out. So the next palette that I used twice in May was this one from ColourPop, the Tinkerbell palette. So obviously the first use was in that palette bingo, but I did want to reach for it again on its own. This is a very pretty palette. I find it very inspiring, but I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't love the look I created with it. I will pop a picture on the screen here. The inspiration for the look was kind of to do something neutral with the pop of green, kind of like what I did with the Sage the Day and the Sweet Talk. I feel like my downfall was using the green mattes and the neutral shimmer. I almost feel like I should have switched it because the green mattes in this palette are very colorful and bold. So the look really wasn't neutral with a pop of green. It was more like green with a pop of neutral, which I'm not saying is like a bad combination. I just feel like I didn't translate what I wanted into the actual look, if that makes sense. I wasn't really driving with it. I had used this neutral shimmer originally, and I feel like it just didn't really go that well with these 2 mattes. At least not how I used it on the lid, so I ended up topping over it with this gold shade here. I do feel like that salvaged the look a little bit. It made the look a little bit more cohesive. I think it turned out okay in the end. Again, it just wasn't exactly what I had in mind. The next 2 palettes I had used twice in May, I used together both times. And I used the very old Urban Decay and Kristen Leanne palette. This is the Daydream palette, obviously very basic and neutral. And I'd pair that palette with the opposite, a not very basic Plain Jane from Adept. I really enjoyed pairing these palettes together. I feel like both the looks turned out really pretty. For the first look you're seeing on the screen here, if you can't tell, I enjoy matching my makeup to my outfits, so I kind of tried to do that in this one here. I'd used all the shades in this palette from Urban Decay except for this peachy one here. And then from the Plain Jane palette, I used AC11 and AC13. These 2 are definitely more of the neutral shades in the palette, and I feel like they created kind of a nice pinky bronze look, and I feel like it went really well with the shirt I was wearing. It was a little bit more on the basic side, but I feel like A, it went well with my shirt, and B, it was really pretty and flattering. Very easy look, more on the spring kind of summery side, and I like how it turned out. However, I do think the second look I created with these palettes was probably my favorite. This one was a little bit more of a springy look. It was a little punchier. I did incorporate the peach shade from the Urban Decay palette for this look. I think I used this shade and these three to create kind of the base of the look. And then I went in with what's probably my favorite shade in the Plain Jane palette. I used AC17 all over the lid. I will swatch this out for you because it's beautiful, but the shade almost has like a peachy pink green shift. It's so beautiful. I feel like this gives me ethereal spring vibes in one shade. And if you've watched a couple of my last videos, something about the ethereal vibes is just kind of tickling my brain lately. I've been really into that, and I feel like this shade is just kind of a perfect example of those vibes, so I really love this look. The next palette that I used twice in May was the Unearthly Spring Magic. This is a very fun color story, obviously very spring, that's the theme. I really enjoyed dipping into this. As I mentioned, I used it twice, so I did create two different looks. I feel like both the looks I did with this palette were a little bit more on the basic side. This first look was a little bit more on the corally brown side. For this look, I focused on the shimmer called Lush. I feel like the picture doesn't really do it justice, but it has a really nice kind of gold flip to it. I feel like it's very pretty, and even in person, I feel like it was just a little bit more impactful than, again, what you're seeing in the picture. Overall, though, I feel like it was a pretty look. I feel like most of the ones in this video, it was very quick and easy to do while still being pretty impactful. For the second look, I paired some of the neutrals here with the blues. I feel like this look gave me kind of wintry, cool tone vibes as well, but it was really pretty. This shade Cleanse ended up being a little bit more mauve than I was expecting. In my opinion, it looks like kind of a cool tone neutral in the pan, but definitely a little bit more on the purpley side once you blend it out, but I still thought it was really pretty. I feel like that does kind of make sense within the palette though, because it went really well with the blue, and I feel like it would look beautiful with these corally pinks too. And I believe I'd use these two shades on the lower lash line. So again, not the most spring of looks, but I feel like it turned out really pretty. I would love to pair like maybe these two greens with some of the corals. I feel like that would be a really nice combination as well. It's just a very pretty, inspiring color story. I love this pop here too. I'm just excited to use this one some more. So the last palette that I used twice in May is the Fool Fantasy by Lunar Beauty and Laura Lee. Here's what this palette looks like. It's obviously a lot more neutral. I feel like some of the tones are giving me fall vibes, but I don't know, something about it I was just inspired to reach for this month. I tried to create two different looks just to kind of play around with the versatility. So the first look you're going to see is kind of more on like the purpley, almost burgundy side. I really like this look, and honestly for both the looks that I did with this palette, I feel like they were colorful but muted. So they were still approachable for work, they were easy to put together, but they still looked interesting and really pretty. I feel like this palette offers a lot of nice depth too. So I used these two shades to deepen up the look you're seeing now. And then I used just these neutral mattes on the top here. So again, very basic look, but I really like how it turned out. For the second look here, I wanted to pair some of the green shades with obviously some more of the neutrals. So for this one, I used these three shades on the bottom here, obviously for the greens. I also went in with Fool's Gold, which is just a really pretty like goldy bronze color. It's like a dirty gold. I think it's really beautiful. And then I kind of lightened everything up with these three shades here. This look was definitely giving more like fall vibes than anything else, but I don't know, I was just really inspired to reach for this palette. I really enjoy the looks I created, and I'm excited to use this in the fall time as well. So as I mentioned, there's two palettes that I used 3 times throughout May, and I feel like it's pretty obvious that one of them is the Blend Bunny Forget Me Not palette. As you saw, each time I used this, it was really just as a companion. I feel like normally this isn't something I'd be drawn to on a day-to-day basis to create a full look. You definitely could, and the tones are really pretty. The shimmers are nice. I've used them as highlights too. It's just not the most inspiring palette to me, so I kind of just prefer to use it as a companion. I feel like it's a nice little workhorse palette. It got the job done when I needed a few neutrals. And then between all the depth here and the white, I feel like you can really kind of complete any look using a palette like this. So I really enjoy it for that, and I'm happy I was able to use it a few more times this month. The last palette I used 3 times in May, I did already talk about earlier in the video, but it's the Blend Bunny Dollhouse palette. So here's what this palette looks like. As I mentioned, I'd use this in conjunction with that palette from Gourmand Girls, I'd only use 1 or 2 shades from here just to complete that look, so obviously I didn't use it very much for that one. But I did create 2 separate looks using just this palette as well. The first look I did, also, you know what? It's not a favorite. There were a couple looks this month that I feel like ended up just being on the wintry side. They were a little cool toned. I just feel like they didn't fully match my energy, if that makes sense, and I think that's why they were not favorites. But I'll show you the first look here. It's not the worst look, it's fine. It's just nothing really special. But to create this look, I believe I used almost every shade from this column right here. The shimmers almost have like a glowy effect, which I find really pretty and flattering. I think I actually mentioned that in my last kind of palette roundup video for April. It was kind of similar to the effect from the Shimmers in the Dollhouse palette that almost just had like a bit of a glow to it. And I just find it really pretty, so I've been enjoying Blend Bunny palettes lately for that reason. The other look I did with the palette, I definitely enjoyed a little bit more. It was definitely channeling the spring vibes a little bit more than the last one was. And for this look, I used most of the shades in this column here, and then I believe these 2 greens down here. These greens are definitely leaning a little bit more like the muted, almost neutral side, but I did put them on the lower lash line just as kind of a pop against these pinky shades here. I feel like I've been really into that kind of effect lately. Even in my last palette roundup video, that was kind of a go-to look. I just really enjoy doing something that kind of contrasts with the top on the lower lash line. So I obviously enjoy doing it with this palette as well. This look turned out a little bit on the darker side, but I feel like it still gave those kind of fun spring vibes. I really enjoy this palette. I feel like it's nice for every day, especially if you're wanting to incorporate some color, but still in an easy and approachable way. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to using it some more. So that's pretty much it. Those are all the palettes I used throughout May. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I'm always really curious as to what other people are using, what your most used palettes are. And yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the video here. Thank you so much for spending your time watching it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!